So I have with me Rita Watson, and Rita's been coming to our church for how long, Rita?
About 10 years.
About 10 years. And what you can't see in picture is her little grandson Jake, who's on the ground playing, hopefully, for the time we need to do that. But Rita, we've been doing a little series in how people came to Christ. So what's your story?
I was searching when I had young children and went to a Catholic church. I'd been brought up as a Catholic and just realised it wasn't for me and didn't do anything about it then for a couple of years. I had some neighbours that moved in 1996, probably about January, and we got on so well. All our children played together, all got on really well as well, and husbands, everything. And the only thing about them was they were very odd. They did Bible studies and prayer meetings in their house, and I'd never ever heard of anyone having a prayer meeting or a Bible study in my life after being brought up as a Catholic. So anyway, Joy gave me a Bible one day and I thought, well, that's really nice, it's very special to her, so I put it in the bookcase because that's what you do with the Bible, it stays in a bookcase. But about a week later my son came home from school and he had a headache, and we gave him Panadol, but more during the night, and he woke up in the morning and he was really ill. He wandered into our room with a pillow against his face. The light was hurting his eyes. So I called the doctor, and in those days the doctors would come to your house, so 2 doctors came out and they examined him and they said, we're really sorry, your son's got meningitis, we've called an ambulance. And there'd been another case in the next village. So anyway, we went along to the hospital in rush hour at that stage, and I'd asked Joy, my next door neighbour, to look after my daughters and take them to school while my husband and I went to the hospital. And while we were in the hospital, I rang up my neighbour and her husband answered the phone and he said Joy was in my house cleaning the house. And I thought that was bizarre. I'd never known anyone to behave like that before or help out like that. And while we were on the phone, he said to me, I'm praying for Chris, I'm really praying for him. And he said it 4 times, and I came off the phone knowing without any doubt that Chris was healed. I don't know how I knew, but I just did. And within 2 hours he'd been sent home from hospital. By 4 o'clock he wanted to go out and ride his bike. So Joy asked me to go, she asked me to go to church with her that weekend. And I said, okay. She'd been taking the children to Sunday school for weeks before that, and I'd let her do it because it meant I could have a lie-in. She'd asked me to go, but I didn't want to. I'd always have a headache or something and just didn't want to go. So I thought, well, I better go because she's been looking after my children. So I went along to church with her, and the message was all about a sick child. And she looked at me and she said, is that another coincidence? Because we'd had a whole string of things like this happening. And she'd also said to me, have you read the red booklet? And I said, well, what red booklet? And she said, well, it's in the back of the Bible. So then I thought, well, it's obvious I've just put it in the bookcase. And so now I'll have to take it out and read it because otherwise she's going to, ask me about it. So I took it out and I read the Why Jesus booklet, and I said, well, if you're real, Lord, show me. And that was actually the day before we went to the church and had the message about the sick child. So I went back and I read the booklet again at night and just realised my sin and asked for forgiveness. I'd been reading the Gospel of John up until then because I felt I had to, because the red booklet told me to. And from then on, I just kept reading the booklet every night and getting more and more understanding and really getting into the Gospel of John. And I became a Christian just in my bed one night after reading that booklet and just praying.
So read us some scripture that has meant something to you. I know we could say the whole lot because it is, but is there something that you're drawn to or something that's been very important to you?
Yeah, this one in 1 Kings 17, verse 19 to 22. I'll just read it. And he said to her, give me your son. And he took him from her arms and carried him up unto the upper chamber where he lodged and laid him on his own bed. And he cried to the Lord, O Lord my God, have you brought calamity upon the widow with whom I sojourn by killing her son? Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried to the Lord, O Lord my God, let this child's life come into him again. And the Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the life of the child came into him again, and he revived. And that's just meaningful because of what happened with my son.